Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and boy, it's a big one, kids. I can barely lift a stack. This is nuts. This is just freaking nuts this week. Tons of new books. Lots of returning series. But before we get started, I just want to point out June is Pride Month for all our LGBTQ friends, family, and everyone out there. This is a great month to celebrate them and their struggles and their pride. If you're not LGBTQ, be a strong supporter, be a friend, be a mentor, and be an ally. Let's get to the comics. First up, we have Star Wars: War of the Bounty Hunters #1. Written by Charles Soule, with artwork by Luke Ross. Now, there have been 4 kind of prequel, what you would consider zero issues that have gone through, like the Star Wars titles, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra, but this is actually the first issue. So I had not read the previous 4 preludes, but I read this, and it does stand on its own. I don't think there's anything I felt like I missed. So this story takes place between the end of Empire Strikes Back and before Return of the Jedi. So Han Solo is frozen in carbonite, and what it is Boba Fett has him, but another bounty hunter actually steals him from Boba Fett. So that's where that's the basic premise of this story. So Boba Fett has to, find Han Solo again. And so, Charles Soule writes, it's a decent story. I mean, I wasn't overwhelmed. I haven't been reading a lot of the Star Wars comics as of late, but I think if you're a fan of Star Wars, this is kind of an interesting, side story, in between, the parts that once again, Soule does a nice job on the script. I mean, it hits all the beats right and everything. And it's, let's be honest, we all love Boba Fett, so this is kind of a nice thing to see. Luke Ross's art is actually really quite nice. He does a great job of capturing all the characters and their, actors and actresses' likeness, when it comes to Luke, Leia, and Han Solo, and of course Chewbacca. It's nice if you're a Star Wars fan. You're gonna dig this. I think the thing is, if you're not like a huge Star Wars fan, this is a good, kind of side story, that kind of gives you some interest in something that and then this is a story in between that. So, it's if it's something that interests you, I would definitely pick it up. Next up, we have Crush and Lobo #1, written by Mariko Tamaki, with artwork by Amanake Nalapan. Now, this is DC, both DC and Marvel are celebrating Pride Month with books. This is the first branded DC Pride book because Crush is bisexual or lesbian, and so it kind of deals with her. She's with her girlfriend. She screws up her birthday party. They break up, and then her dad Lobo wants to get back together because he's been in therapy. So that's where this first issue goes. I am not familiar with Crush. This is my first exposure, to her as a character, because I haven't been reading Teen Titans. So this is, once again, I don't think you have to know anything. Tamaki does a nice job of, getting you up to speed on her character and everything. And of course, we all know Lobo. Everybody knows Lobo. So it's off to an interesting start. I did like the story. I think it's interesting. I'm about, who isn't a fan of Lobo at this point? We all love Lobo. And, Crush is actually an interesting character. And I think what's nice about Tamaki's script is, she gives her a lot of character, especially for people that may not be as familiar with it, if they haven't been reading Titans. Nalapan's artwork is actually really nice. I really enjoyed it. It's a really good looking book. It was a solid story. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I enjoyed it. I think it's one of the better ones this week. Next up, we have Everfrost #1, written by Ryan K. Lindsay, and artwork by Sammy Kelva. Well, this is one of those that's just like, it's kind of a mess story wise. Part of it is you have two stories going on at the same time, and neither one is quite satisfying or actually works. You have the female lead. We don't know why she's here. The dialogue kind of drones on. We don't really learn anything about her. And then we have another story going on, and it just neither one works, and that's really the where the problem lies with this book. It just sits there, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, first of all, I don't know what's going on. I don't care about these characters, and it's just story wise, it's just a real mess. It's just kind of sad. Kevla's art is actually really nice and one of the better things about it, but even he can't save this. Just the script is just a mess, and you should never be confused in your story. I think probably what Lindsay should have done is stuck with one story and then maybe did the second issue with that second story. But otherwise, honestly, this one's a huge miss, and definitely I would skip it this week. Next up, we have The Nice House on the Lake #1. Written by James Tynan IV with artwork by Alvarado Martinez Bueno. I really, really like this. This is a Black Label book, but it's definitely in that horror, kind of like the Hill House comics. So the basic premise is you have Ryan Crane, who meets this guy at a bar years prior, and then she and 10 other guests get invited to this lake house, and they all have, not that they have something in common, but they all are there for a reason, because of what they do or what they know. And so then while they're there, the world literally starts coming to an end. There's a great 2-page spread with like tweets, because she's able to like connect to the internet and see what's going on in the world. And at one point they say, well, I just saw Anderson Cooper die on live television. So people are just, everybody dies, and then the person who invited them, Walter, comes and says, I've picked you 10 people for a reason, and the world's coming to an end, but this place is safe. So it's a wild concept. I mean, we've seen tons of these, post-apocalyptic, end of the world type things. Tynan really has come up with a really good concept here. And I really, really enjoyed the story. He takes the time to flesh out the characters, but even though there's a lot of exposition, especially in this first issue, it's very, very interesting, to read, and you don't, he gives you a nice little backstory to each of the characters and everything. And Martinez Bueno's artwork is actually really, really nice here. He does an amazing job of bringing this all to life, and I like the fact that when the world's coming to an end, they don't actually show a lot of stuff. Like I said, it's you see kind of pictures in tweets, but you don't really see it. You just deal with the emotion of these characters, after they learn all this. It's the and a lot of it is very character driven and really dialogue heavy in this first issue. And he just really nails on the art. The art is absolutely wonderful in this book. I really, really like this book. It definitely, this is a must read. You definitely need to check it out. I really, really liked it. Next up, we have Redshift #1, written by H.S. Tack, with artwork by Brent McKee. So what it is you have you have a colony on Mars, and they're basically they're running out of resources. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a new Earth, not a particularly original concept. And what it is the one miner, his mother has went off, and she's gone. She hasn't come back, and the dad really won't say what's going on. So you find out that that her backstory is she went to try to help find this new Earth along with her and other people. And so he's been chosen to also go and try to find this new Earth. And that's kind of the basic premise. This first issue was decent. You know, I wouldn't say it was mind blowing or, you know, because you've read this story a million times. I don't know that Tack actually brought a whole lot new to it. But you know, it's a decent story. It's just not. It's not over. You know, it's not like a must read. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't necessarily overwhelmed. I will say, you know, it might be worth swinging for a second issue to see if Tack does something there. But at this point, just basing on the first issue, it's a little iffy. I will say Brent McKee's artwork is really nice here. Because Scout Comics is not, you know, is really more miss than hit. And I will say this is actually a really good looking book from Scout. This is way above average for them. But overall, I liked it, but just didn't quite love it enough. Next up, we have Out of Body #1, written by Peter Milligan, with artwork by Inka Miranda. And a lot of people know Milligan. You know, he did a lot of stuff for Vertigo back in the day. He did the Shade the Changing Man with Chris Bachalo, and he's written a ton of stuff. He's been actually writing a number of books for Aftershock like this one. And what's interesting is you have Dan Collins, who it was not murdered, but he was an attempted murder, but he's in a coma, and Abby is kind of, I guess way you could, she has like psychic abilities, so she's actually kind of communicating, so she's trying to help, you know, him find out who tried to kill him. And what's interesting is, so his job, he works in a medical thing where they basically give people LSD, but very controlled. And, you know, so they trip, but not like bad trip, you know, it's all controlled and everything. So, you know, but you also find out the villain, which is is a nod. It's kind of a play on Dorian Gray, we think, because that's the name of the ultimate villain. And what it is one of his underlings basically is in charge of getting him a soul. So he's trying to get the soul from Dawn, and then, you know, it's Abby that is, you know, trying to figure out everything going on. So that's what we kind of get in the first issue. I you know, I think the concept is really interesting here. I think it's got a good concept. The key is going to be the second issue was where Milligan takes the story. Miranda's artwork is really nice here, and really adds to, you know, the story working very well. It's a great marriage of you know, because there's a lot of time where there's just dialogue, and he does a really nice job of, you know, visually making it interesting, and especially with Dan, you know, he's in a coma and he doesn't really have much facial expression, so he actually does a really nice job on that of you know, conveying his emotions even though he doesn't have any facial expressions. I think it's worth checking out if you're looking for kind of something different. But you know, it's definitely going to be an acquired taste on that one. Next up, we have The Worst Dudes #1, written by Aubrey Sitterson, with artwork by Tony Gregori. This is one of those books that tries to be edgy with, like, you know, kind of like sex and naughty words and stuff like that. But the problem comes down to it's okay. It never quite, you know, there's a lot going on. So you have this like bounty hunter who has been hired by the queen to find her, you know, stepdaughter, who's basically running around the universe, you know, doing drugs, having sex. And so the bounty hunter is sent with the queen's son, and, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, it's not anything. It's trying to be edgy and you know, humorous, and but it never quite nails that. And and that's kind of where the problem with the Sitterson script, fails, is it just never quite comes together. It's like it's not bad, but it's certainly kind of like it just sits there. Grigori's artwork is really interesting. I mean, it's definitely pretty wild a lot of times, and it definitely kind of fits the insanity of it. But there's also times where it's a little inconsistent that kind of bugged me a little bit. But overall, it was okay. And I think that's where the book lands. It's kind of okay, but it really didn't really jump out and set the world on fire. So I would say this is kind of a skip it one. Next up, we have Ballistic #1, written by Colin Bunn, with artwork by Jonas Scarf. This one's kind of interesting. I don't want to see it. It's kind of a superhero story, but it's kind of like the Doom Patrol. So you have these 5 people that kind of appear, and they have these powers, but they're new to it, so they kind of cause chaos. So one of them, Reagan, has split from the group, and she's out on her own. And Hannah, who what we can kind of piece together has the town where they came to first. Yeah, they destroyed the town, but apparently she's been hunting them for a long time. And so that's kind of where this first issue goes, where she finds her, and then, there's like this, FBI or, Men in Black type thing that come. And so she, they end up, kind of at the end of this first issue, Reagan's like, well, maybe I need to go back to, my siblings. And that's kind of where it is. I think there's some interesting things, but it's definitely kind of a tough first issue because there's a lot of exposition, and, there's kind of more questions than answers. And it was decent, but, it was kind of like, I think there's some ideas there. It's going to be, once again, the key is going to be that second issue. It was okay, but I think there's enough there to give it a chance to give it a second issue. Bunn's a good writer, so I have hope that he, this is just, more of the exposition first issue. I will say, Grigori's artwork's actually really, really nice here. It does a good job of, bringing it all to life. So, that one's kind of a mixed bag, but if you're looking for something different, I think it might be worth checking out. Next up, we have Batman: The Adventures Continue Season 2, #1, written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, with artwork by Ty Templeton. This, like the first series, is a digital first. So if you've bought the digital issues, this is just a reprint of that. But what this is, it's like Batman the Animated Series, but more of like within the DC universe. So like this one has Zatanna and Deadman in it, and also the Court of Owls. So if you're a fan of the animated series, this is just it's exactly that, but in comic form. That's what makes it fun. Of course, Burnett and Dini were they wrote and a lot of the episodes on Batman the Animated Series, so they certainly know these characters and how that style works. Templeton's artwork is perfect. He did Batman Adventures back in the day, and he really captures that animation style. This is just really a fun book, especially for fans of the animated series. This is also a great all ages book. So if you have like kids and they love Batman, this is really good in their wheelhouse. I wouldn't say it's for young kids because there's a fair amount of dialogue, but other than that, if they're good readers, they're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Everybody's gonna love it. I love this book to death. I also love the cover, the covers artists they get. This one, the main cover is by Riley Rosmos. I'm a huge fan. And it's really, these are just fun books. Next up, we have Moths #1, written by J. Michael Straczynski, with artwork by Mike Choi. So what this is, so there's been this plague that's killed a lot of people, but it leaves a latent, the best way to describe it's like a mutant gene, but it's dormant. So some people, you can live with this and live your life fine, and usually nothing ever happens. But you can trigger this gene, and you'll get a special ability, but the catch is you'll only live 6 months once you activate it. So some people, do, so the story is about Emily Choi, and she wants to activate her power, which you don't know what it's going to be, but to basically help people and things in the world. That's what she wants to do. So that's the basic premise here. Straczynski, I mean, he's written a lot of stuff. He's written, movies and television shows. He's done a lot of stuff. But he's been doing a lot of comics lately. This is an interesting story. I mean, there's no gray area. It's a bit of X-Men, but I think it's a different enough take that it does work. The really big win on this is Mike Choi, Choi's artwork, where he does kind of a realistic thing that is a little bit kind of creepy at times, because it's still comic, but it has like that realism, kind of like an Alex Ross type thing. And it's just a really good looking book. I enjoyed the first issue. I wasn't necessarily overwhelmed, but I think it's got an interesting premise enough to give it a chance. I enjoyed it. Wasn't overwhelmed, but did enjoy it. So next up we have The Conjuring the Lover #1. So there's 2 stories in here. The first one's written by David L. Johnson, Johnson McGoldrick, and Rex Ogle, with artwork by Jerry Brown. The second story is written by Scott Snyder with artwork by Dennis Colwin. And there's macabre mail order, like remember in the comics back in the 60s and 70s where you could mail away for everything. So those are written by McGoldrick and Ogle, with artwork by Dave Johnson. Those are a real treat. Those I just died. So the question's going to be is, do you need to see The Conjuring to read this? And absolutely not, because I'm one of the few people, I've never seen it, not on purpose. I've just never gotten around to seeing it. But this is an anthology book, very much like a horror Twilight Zone. So the first story is about a girl, Jessica, who's going to school, and it appears that this, demon or apparition is kind of following her around. We don't know why. This first story by McGoldrick and Ogle, is setting things up. We just get to learn a little bit about her, about Jessica, and that's kind of where that goes. It was interesting. I wouldn't say I was overwhelmed by this first story, because it's pure setup and exposition. So, but really, the big win for this is that second story by Snyder, who really it's a short story. It's a take on the paying the ferryman when you're dead. It's a great short story. It's a great little horror. Snyder's really good at horror. He's done American Vampire. He knows horror really well. It's really good. The artwork on the first one by Gary Brown is actually really nice, captures the mood really well. But the second short story by Dennis Colwin is just absolutely just gorgeous. I love his artwork. He really captures, the tone of that story quite well. And I also, once again, want to point out Johnson's artwork on the macabre mail order fake ads in the book. They're just absolutely gorgeous looking. And I also, I really love the covers. The main covers by Bill Sienkiewicz. It's really, really nice. But the alternate, the variant cover is a homage to VHS covers, which is really neat. So both those covers are really, really good. I really enjoy this. I love horror. I love anthologies because it allows things to be different. So this one's definitely a really must read. I really enjoyed this first issue. Next up, we have Jenny Zero #2, written by Dave DeWinch and Brockton McKinney, with artwork by Magenta King. As you know, we've had tons of kaiju books. There's, Godzilla books, there's Ultra Mega, there's Ultraman. And Jenny Zero is kind of coming in, kind of on the tail of this. There was also the problem with the printing of the first issue that didn't help. But I like the first issue, but wasn't necessarily overwhelmed. And I think the second issue, once again, good, but it's just it doesn't feel like it's really bringing much new to the genre. Jenny is becoming, she's able to like tap into this where she can get big and everything, and we learn that comes from her father. And it's just it's she doesn't really want to do this, but she kind of feels like she has to. And I think it's one of those. I think there's some interesting concepts here. I just don't know that it's that Deutsch and McKinney are really able to kind of flesh everything out. Once again, you're reading it and it's all nice and everything, but at the end, it's not particularly memorable. I really do like King's artwork. She really just has a kinetic energy to her artwork, and it's really neat. But overall, I think it's just one of those. It's just not really. It's kind of treading water. It's not bad. It's just not really going anywhere. So I would say, I'm pretty much done with this. Because it's just not gelling as well as it probably could. Next up, we have NonStop Spiderman number 3, written by Joe Kelly with pencils by Chris Bachalo, and there's a ton of inkers. So we have Tom Townsend, Wayne Foucher, Al Vey, John Leavesvey, and Jamie Mendoza are all inkers on this. My guess is that could be one of the reasons why this book has been pretty late. The first 2 issues came out, and there's been a bit of a gap between this 3rd issue, and I think the 4th issue has been delayed too. But I will say, the good thing about this is if you're, it's a non-continuity. It's standing on its own, and it's just fun and charming. I think it would be like if you did like an animated thing where it's accessible for everybody. That's kind of in a way what this comic is. We're still in the first storyline of Peter trying to find out, who's been selling these drugs, and he's been fighting the 2 wrestlers and everything, and it's really fun. I mean, I really have to give it to Kelly. He's keeping it light and fun, and that's why this book has really been charming, is that it's just, you don't have to have, you just have to know he's Spider-Man, and that's all you really need to know. And the action is just insanely over the top. But Chalo's just really, like, visually, it just, like, it attacks you. Like, it explodes off the page. There's so much detail and insanity going on with the artwork that just really, it's amazing. It's absolutely just stunning looking book. And then you have Kelly's just fun and goofy script where it's just it's not deep or anything, but in some ways that's what I'm liking about it is it's enjoyable. When you get done reading it, you're kind of like, wow, I really kind of enjoyed that. Not overwhelmed, but just really enjoyed it. And I think we, especially with like main characters like Spider-Man, it's really good to have these type of books where somebody can kind of just come in and not worry about, well, this story's been going on for the last 5 years, and here, here's issue 28, so in that respect, if you want to just sit down and read a fun Spider-Man comic, this is definitely the one. Next up, we have Nocterra number 4, written by Scott Snyder and and with artwork by Tony S. Daniel. So we still have Val. She's trying to get the girl to, sanctuary, and her brother is basically turning into a monster, and and they're still being hunted down by the villain because the girl still has the book that might solve the whole darkness covering the earth. That's what's going on. So this issue, once again, is just continuing the storyline, which has been really good. I've really been enjoying this book. And, I like how Snyder is just, keeps developing the characters, because we see the past with Val and her brother. And, with the girl, the little girl, she doesn't quite know what's going on, but, it's just interesting. I mean, like I said, this is definitely kind of a middle issue. This issue is not going to, necessarily blow you away. I mean, Snyder's just, building foundation for the story. The big win is always, Daniel's artwork, which is just really gorgeous in this book, and does a wonderful job of just like bringing this, like, insane, horrific world to life with the monsters and everything. And it's got action. But once again, this is, if you've been reading it, it's really enjoyable. If you haven't been, this has definitely been quite a surprise. It's been a really surprisingly good book, and that's been a real win for it. So I'm still enjoying it. I can't wait. I'm excited to see where, because there's a big twist at the end. I don't want to give it away, but it'll be interesting to see where the next issue takes us. Next up, we have The Swamp Thing, number 4, written by Ram V and Mike Perkins. So from the last issue, we have Levi and Jennifer have gone to the green world, which is, if you've been reading Swamp Thing since any point since the Alan Moore era, the green world is like our world, but it's all, plants and things like that. So, Jennifer was doing a brain scan on Levi, and he basically Swamp Thinged out and drew her into the green world. So that's where they are right now. They're kind of both semi-trapped because he's new to this. And as we saw last issue, Alec Holland showed up. So he kind of explains to him that the he has access to all the memories of all the previous Swamp Things and in the green world and everything that goes with it. So he basically, Jennifer's hanging out with somebody that we thought maybe was, like trying to help her, but we kind of now discover this issue that he wasn't. And so this issue is dealing with him getting out of the green world. And then at the end of the issue, we kind of see the people that are hunting Levi and Swamp Thing are, hot on their trail. So it'll be interesting to see. Ram V's doing a wonderful job on this. He's really getting Swamp Thing, which is not an easy task because there's been many failed attempts at Swamp Thing. And Mike Perkins' artwork is just really, really good here. He just continues to just knock it out of the park, and it's his style, but he definitely draws from, of course, John Totalman and Stephen Bissette, obviously with Alan Moore's run. But also, there's definitely the direct influence of Bernie Wrightson. But it's very much his own artwork. But he definitely knows where this character has come from, and visually he gets that, and that's actually a really nice thing to see. I'm really enjoying this book. It's only 8 issues long. 10 issues, and I'm really excited that they've done such a wonderful job, and we're just a little about the halfway point. So it just keeps getting better and better as it goes on, and it's a must read. Next up, we have Dead Dog Bites, number 4, written and drawn by Tyler Boss. This is a final issue. So Joe, who has been looking for her girlfriend Mac, finally in this issue, everything comes together. I can't really describe the best way really to describe this book is very Twin Peaks. It definitely has kind of that David Lynch feel, but what I really appreciate about Boss in the story is how he's laid this whole thing out. It's been a mystery, but it's been a mystery that you're not like always feeling like you need to know the answer to the questions. I mean, he does answer the questions. He wraps it up really well in this issue, but it's one of those things that, the question is not always, the answer is not always the answer to the question. And that's what I have loved about this book. Even though, this one definitely spills the beans, it wraps everything up nicely, but, he's also done a really great job of not saying that this is the end per se, because as with any, kind of somewhat real life type story, things don't wrap up in a bow, in the end. I mean, there is an ending, but it's not like the end. Okay, everybody runs off happy and everything. And that's what has impressed me about this book. Not only with his writing, but his artwork has just been absolutely stunning on this book. With the layouts, with the way he combines the art with the script. It's been a great book, and it's a real shame. I know it hasn't been a big seller, but I really hope that when it comes out in trade that you pick it up. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's really been a must read. It's been one of my favorite books these last few months. And to say that it was a satisfying ending is a bit of an understatement. I mean, Boss really just nailed this book, and it was really fabulous. And if your comic store has all 4 issues, run out now. If not, I know the trade will be out in a few months. This is definitely a must buy book. I've really enjoyed it. Next up, we have the Sensational Wonder Woman #4, written by Karina Becco, with artwork by Danny. These are one, standalones. I believe they're digital first. But this issue I definitely picked up for Danny's artwork. I really loved her. She did one of the Hill House books that was just really wonderful. But the story was kind of okay. It was just kind of a typical, so Wonder Woman goes to a conference, they're going to try, somebody has this way of, making rain where rain is needed and stopping rain where it's not needed, to kind of balance everything out. It's kind of a bit of an environmental story. But the problem is it just ends up, it just be, like a villain behind it. And it's very typical. It's not bad. It's just kind of an average Wonder Woman story. It's not bad, but it certainly doesn't really aspire to be anything great. On the plus side, I will say I really like Danny's artwork, and she really did her best to kind of make this much more visually interesting than it is. But once again, an artist can only do so much with just an average script, and that's the problem. It's not bad, it's just average. So that's where this one lands, and it's enjoyable, but not particularly overwhelming. But if I will give it the fact that for somebody who doesn't really read Wonder Woman on a regular basis, these are decent stories to give them because they have a beginning, middle, and end. They're one issue, one and done, and so in that sense, I appreciate it. But if you're a regular Wonder Woman reader, then I would definitely pass on this. It's that's where that one goes. Next up, we have Haha #5. Written by W. Maxwell Prince and with artwork this issue by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Now, this did come out last week, but unfortunately, Diamond screwed up Pulp Fiction's books, and they didn't get it until this week. But I will say the one thing I've really loved about this, these are one and done. The basic premise is that the story just revolves about somebody who's a clown. In this case, it's about an old lady who worked at the circus and who just wears a clown makeup around town. And so it's the story is like you've seen a million times, where these kids get together and they dare, they all have this mission of a dare to like go do this, and one of the kids, his dare is to go to this creepy lady's house and get something from her. And you find, I don't want to give any more away, but I will say this is absolutely the most sweetest story you will ever read. It's wonderful. It's charming. It even has, like a couple little scares, when the kid gets to her house. And it's just really wonderful. I've really been enjoying this series because each issue is done by different artists, and Prince actually he knows what the artist is able to do, and he matches the story to the artist. In this case, Walta just really, he captures everything. This is a wonderful issue. I really enjoyed it. And once again, it's one and done. So you can just pick this issue up, read it, and it stands on its own. But I have enjoyed the previous issues, and I'm really enjoying this series. It's a great, it's a great anthology, and we just don't get many of those anymore. Next up, we have Batman Catwoman #5, written by Tom King with artwork by Clayman. So this issue, once again, we have the kind of multiple storylines. We have the future Catwoman who has, killed the Joker. We also have the past where you have Catwoman who is now with Phantasm. Honestly, we haven't really seen the past couple of issues. We haven't seen much Batman, which is kind of interesting. So this one you have, we have Phantasm, we have a drunk Catwoman, we have Harley Quinn who's pissed that the Catwoman's killed the Joker. So it's chaos, but once again, King is able to throw all this, insanity into a blender and it just make it work. And you can definitely, the one nice thing is the time jumps aren't bad at all. You know which time period you're in, especially because Catwoman's older, so you can always tell that. But it's been just a wild ride. I mean, every issue, like, okay, what is he gonna do next with this? And that has been just the real charm of this book. And Clayman's artwork, I mean, he just, like, it's gorgeous. It's a great looking book. You got, once again, you've got all these wonderful characters, whether they're old or new. He's able to bring this all to life. Like I said, it doesn't feel like it should work, but King really just brings it all together, and you're just sitting there going, wow, another great issue. And that's, King and Man are just knocking it out of the park on this book. I'm really enjoying it. And finally, we have Firepower number 12, written by Robert Kirkman, with Chris Samnee. So this 12th issue wraps up the first storyline. It is not the end of the book, because there's more to come, but it does finish this storyline with Owen going back to help Wee Lun to keep the dragon at bay. But we find out that, I'm trying not to spoil this, that, things don't turn out the way one plans. Now, they do defeat, the bad guys and everything, but it's, once again, there's so much going on here that things are not what they seem. And that's what's going to be interesting going forward from this, because even though this is the end of this first storyline, there's still a ton. We have Owen and his family, they go back home, but now there's the repercussions of all this, the history that his family has now learned about Owen. And, there's a lot going on. And, the question comes down to, what was the dragon? Was it a dragon? Was it not a dragon? Was it there? Was it not there? That's really the question, because I don't think it's really been answered. And that's what's very interesting with the end of this first story arc, is that things are not quite what they seem. And that has kind of been a thread that's actually been going through the whole thing. And once again, I'll say it again. I like Robert Kirkman and everything, but I'm not like, oh my God, it's Robert Kirkman. I won't, but I really say with him and Sam Nee on this book has really just nailed it. I mean, it's a wonderful book. The characters are great. The action's great. It just all blends together so well. And I think a lot of that has to do with Sam Nee, and his artwork is just, I love him as an artist. He's really bringing his A game to this. It's really fabulous. It's a great looking book with a really good story, and just, the characters and everything. It's wonderful. At this point, if you haven't been reading it, first of all, shame on you. This is a great book. I would assume that at some point, I know there's some trades. They might collect the whole first 12 issues plus the original graphic novel, which was basically zero. Hopefully they'll collect that in one thing. Hopefully, they'll maybe do that as a hardcover. But if you haven't been reading it, run out now, go get the trades of up to what they have now. And you should be reading this book. It's really good. I'm really excited to see where they take the next story. That is going to do it. We had a ton of books this week. Thank you for hanging in with me. As always, public service announcement. I get my books, my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store, Annie, and they have a new employee, Eduardo. He's a great kid. They run a great shop. They take care of their customers. They use pull box. If you get a pre-order in a book, as long as the distributor doesn't screw it up, you will get your books, and they're very adamant about that. Great customer service. They also, their trades and hardcovers are 30% off every day. They also carry a nice selection of manga at 20% off. So if you're into manga, they have a good selection. And once again, if they don't have something and it's orderable, they will try to get it for you. They also have there's a sister store in Culver City, Pulp Fiction Pulp Fiction Comics Culver City, run by Chris and her team. If you're more in the LA area, that's a great store to check out. Once again, they offer discounts for their subscribers, 30% off their trades and hardcovers too. So once again, always support your local comic shop. It's very important. I know I have a friend of mine, Jen Hayes. She owns The Dragon. She owns 3 stores in Canada. I know they've been locked down with not being able to have people in the store. Once again, if you're in Canada, for some reason you're in Canada, please support your local comic shops. They're really struggling right now. And I know around the rest of the world, there are other countries that are struggling because of the pandemic. And so, please support your local comic shop when you can. Once again, please get vaccinated. We're in California. We're actually doing quite good. We're not good enough yet. If you haven't got your vaccination, get your vaccination. I've been vaccinated. Ryan, Annie, everybody I know is really been vaccinated. We haven't had any problems, some mild symptoms afterwards, but better that than being on a ventilator in the hospital. I can tell you that right now. Continue to wear your mask. I know the mask mandates are getting a little funky right now. I still wear my mask. I think it's a good idea. Just better to be safe than sorry. And once again, it's Pride Month. Support, encourage, be friends to the LBGQ community, and be an ally. That is very important right now in these times. And once again, that goes with what I always say: please be kind to each other out there. Being kind is easy. It's free. It's nice. And just be safe out there, folks. That's going to do it. I know it's been a long one, but we had a lot of books to cover. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and please like and share these videos. Thank you very much. This is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing out. Bye.